Hello, hello, hello. Let's just make sure everything is set up. Got a few things coming up here from StreamYard. I don't know what that is. Let me just check if I'm live on here. Yeah, there I go. So how are you doing? Hello, everybody. How are you doing? It's been a few minutes since I've been on here. And geez, the last time I was here, it was like a different season. It's so hot today. Sure, if I'm throwing ice down my throat, please just forgive me. It's just really, really hot here. So if you are joining me, please give StreamYard permission, and then I can see who it is that is with me. I don't know why this is coming up. Let me see if that's better. So welcome in this video, in this live, and I hope I'll get to chat to one or two of you during the course of the live. I want to talk about a few things, a few brain hacks that we can put into play that helps us to energize ourselves when we are, in the course and scope of creating our careers, creating our day-to-day lives with our jobs. But I also think that this is really useful for anyone who is a manager. As a manager, it is very, very useful to know what I'm about to share with you. And you know what? I know that there's quite a few of my clients, my relatives. There's a number of people in the group who have kids who are in their matric year and who are having to make choices and decisions about what they're going to study. And maybe what I'm going to share with you is useful to share with them so that they can think about what it is that is important for them. Having said that, I just want to share a bit of a statistic with you, and I always share the statistic at the beginning of most of my videos. I can see that there's someone with me. Hello, welcome. If you give StreamYard permission, then we can actually chat. Well, I can chat with you anyway. But the statistic that I want to share with you is one that brings me like a lot of, I'd say, sadness and a lot of concern for us as people in general. And the statistic that I want to share with you is about the workplace. In fact, it's one or two that I want to share with you about the workplace. One of the things that is true about the workplace, and this is something that just catches my breath every time I hear it, is that we spend the vast majority of our waking lives in the course and scope of earning a living. And it is a rare person who is not doing this, and maybe you're not even generating an income, but you are contributing in some other way. So most of our adult lives are spent in the course and scope of contribution. Some people would say that in excess of 65% of our waking lives are spent doing stuff to earn a living, to contribute, to make a difference, and to add value. And I think that some of us, at particular times in our life, it's more than 69% of our waking lives. It goes into that part of our lives. We're working at work, we're working at home, we're just really busy and preoccupied with contribution and creating a living. So the statistic that really breaks my heart is that depending on whose research you're looking at, up to 80% of people who are working, who are engaged in contribution, find themselves being disengaged. And of that percentage, 39% is seriously disengaged in the work that they do. And this is not just people who work for other people. This is not just people who have got fairly routine jobs. This is true of people from all walks of life. This is true of business owners, professionals, self-employed people. Every walk of life, every industry, all over the world, people are experiencing a high degree of disengagement with your work. And if you experience a high disengagement with your work, and your work is the biggest part of your life, then that means that you are, in all likelihood, experiencing disengagement with your life. And if you look at the research around anxiety and depression, the levels of anxiety and depression are just escalating and mushrooming at unprecedented levels. And year on year, the increase of people using medication to manage the anxiety, the depression, and the burnout is increasing by 20%. So these are horrific statistics. And I really want to say to you that if you're finding yourself experiencing a level of disengagement that might feel like it's going to lead to depression, anxiety, and burnout, and you're going to need to take medication on an ongoing basis, please know that there is always something that you can do that makes that possibility not an inevitable one for you, because the number one killer out there is not COVID, of course. It is, in fact, stress and anxiety. And in the first world countries, this is just going like crazy. So before I share with you the 5 things that is useful for us to know and to understand to help us to create more engagement for ourselves or for our team members in the work that we do, I just want to share with you some of the things that is very, very true. The first is that nobody goes to work. You, me, nobody. I mean, unless there's like something at play, nobody goes to work to be disengaged. Nobody goes to work to do a half-assed job. Nobody goes to work to be an arsehole. These are things that happen because people are not in resourceful states. These are things that happen because we feel overwhelmed by the demands that is being lobbied at us, and we don't feel supported, right? And we don't feel as though we are mastering up to the challenges ahead of us. There are any number of reasons why we might not be feeling as if we're mastering up to the challenges that we are being asked to rise to. But, you know, when we know the things that I'm going to share with you now, then we can do something about it, and we can start moving away from those things that are keeping us in an unresourceful state. It's just so incredibly important that we recognize that our resilience is critical, our resourcefulness is critical to us being able to feel engaged in our work. And these things are the things that can help you to feel more engaged and feel more resourceful at work. And it's going to help you to support your team members to feel more resourceful and more engaged at work. So one of the reasons why people don't operate in an optimal state is not because they don't like their jobs. Many people actually start out loving their jobs, but things happen along the way. And we just fall out of love with our work. You know, one of the classic definitions of burnout is that you go into a very, very cynical state, and you just start to disconnect with the very thing that you had passion for previously. So you would start out trying a great many things with great passion to accomplish something, but things don't necessarily go the way they go, and cynicism sets in. And so you end up disconnecting, and the experience you have is one of, I don't care. That is what burnout feels like for most people. It's not that you're crashing and burning and you can't get up in the mornings. You just are not feeling motivated and inspired by your work, and you feel as though the wall that you have to climb to accomplish anything is just too great. Now, if that continues for a long time, you lose personal efficiency, and the more personal efficiency you lose, the more cynical you feel, and the less powerful you feel, and the more powerless you feel. And so it's a cycle that just continues and continues and continues, and before you know it, you just can't take it anymore, and you go down the path of depression. Now, I want to help you to recognize a few things. One of the things is that our brains are fairly constant companions to us in our jobs. And there is a big difference in the way in which our brains show up when our brains feel rested and nourished and all the good, positive, great stuff is happening in our brains, as opposed to when it's feeling depleted. So an energized brain is a brain that does a few things. I made a few notes to make sure that I mention all of it. But an energized brain is a brain that doesn't have that brain fog. So I wonder how often you walk around feeling like you've got this incredible amount of brain fog going on for you. And how that brain fog shows up is different for everyone, but the one thing that you don't feel is energized and alert. So the one thing that is true of an energized brain is that you are focused and attentive, and you can pick up details. You really are able to see things that if you are tired and depleted, you can't necessarily see. The other thing is that when your brain is energized, when you are rested, and when I talk about rested, I don't necessarily only mean that you've gotten enough sleep, because there are many people, when they're in a state of burnout, they can get as much sleep as they like. They're going to wake up exhausted. The mechanics of their brain, the chemicals in their brain, is not one that is allowing them to lift out of that cynicism, to lift out of that, that fight, flight, freeze nervous system response. So they are just perpetually tired. So if you're feeling perpetually tired, you're waking up tired, then you need to do something different, and we can touch on that later on, but more sleep isn't what's going to help you, right? So a rested brain, an energized brain, is one that is able to catch detail, pay attention, focus, stay with a task for a long period of time. And it helps you to regulate your moods. Now, I know for myself, when I'm tired, I become incredibly, incredibly short with people. In fact, I just become short with anything. I become short with inanimate things around me. And I know I'm not the only weirdo out there doing that. When we're not able to regulate our emotions, we don't create great relationships with people. And one of the biggest reasons why people are not able to regulate the emotions is because they're just in a completely disengaged, disconnected, alienated state with themselves. They're alienated from themselves, they're alienated from their own values, they're alienated from their own standards, they're alienated from their own deepest intentions. And the longer they stay alienated from the things that they hold as their values and their intentions, the more disconnected they become from themselves, because that is how they end up surviving in their reality. So this is an important thing, because when we're working in an environment that creates a system inside of ourselves where we disconnect from ourselves, that has got severe implications for us across our lives. And it is really, really important for us to pause and to recognize what those implications are and how it's playing out, and to understand that if we don't take action, we end up losing the relationships that's most important to us. So the other thing that an energized brain does is it helps us to make connections. So an energized brain will help us to make connections. And so innovation becomes a real opportunity for us. Whereas when we are tired and we are cynical and we are just not interested and we don't care, those connections can parade in front of us. They can be wearing tutus and sparklers in their hair, but we're not going to make the connections. And if we make the connections, we're going to think it's somebody else's responsibility to make it happen. We're not going to claim it for ourselves, because we just don't have the energy. We just don't have the motivation, right? Then there's two more. One of the things that I love about how our brains operate is we can make connections that are really, really credible in terms of predicting or anticipating outcomes of decisions that are being made. So we can make really good decisions. Whereas when your brain is depleted, your capacity to make good decisions is really, really problematic. And because you're making decisions from A tired place, and B, a disengaged, and C, a irritated, uninformed, not adequately informed place, the decisions you make are typically poor decisions, and it reinforces the cynicism and the I don't care feeling. So it is really important to understand this for yourself or for your team, that if people are tired and not engaged, the consequences are dire for them as individuals, but it's also very, very drastic in relation to the jobs that they have to do. And when you've got many people in your system that is tired at this level, disengaged at this level, then it is hard to progress. The best chance you have is just to tread water and to continue doing what you're doing. When you introduce change into these environments where people are very tired, they're incredibly resistant to it because they don't have the capacity, they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the wherewithal to endure that change. And yeah, so smart decisions, predicting outcomes, these are all the things that a energized brain does. And as I mentioned, as I went along, a depleted brain does exactly the opposite. A depleted brain reinforces everything that is wrong and everything that is not supported and everything that is negative in the world, right? So I want to share a very, very quick story with you about somebody that I'm coaching at the moment. And the lady I'm coaching is coaching a team. She's leading a team, and she's leading this team immediately after a restructure. She's just taken leadership. It affects memory too. I can't say who it is, but absolutely it affects memory too. And I actually want to say that's a very personal experience for me. One of the biggest things that made me think about what might be happening for myself is the fact that I have very, very poor recall. My memory is shot to pieces. So I have to make notes, because if I don't make notes, then I'll soon start talking about something else very random. But coming back to the story I want to share with you, I'm coaching a lady. She is leading a team, but she's leading a team immediately after a restructure. And prior to this restructure, she knew this particular team member from a distance. And the only impression she ever had of this team member was that this person is bright, this person is incredibly switched on, a go-getter, and that he is possibly someone that, you know, she might want to hire in the future, not knowing that she would actually end up leading him. And the person had a few setbacks, and nothing too serious, but setbacks nonetheless. And when she started to lead the team that he's part of, one of the things that the handing over manager said to her was that she might want to consider allowing this guy to have a lot more free time, because he's really proving to be an absolute disappointment. Now, my client wasn't interested in necessarily giving this guy a lot more free time. She wanted to see how she can help him. And one of the assumptions that she made was that he's overwhelmed, that he's anxious, and that he's got too much on his plate. And, you know, she had conversations with him about his performance, and nothing spectacular transpired. And one of the things that she started doing was she started taking work away from him. But she wasn't being malicious in taking work away from him. She actually really and truly believed that she is being supportive of him by taking this work away from him, and that she was giving him a better opportunity to focus on the work that he's got ahead of him, so he can do that well and eventually come to the space that he is feeling confident and take on more. So in our conversations, you know, she was expressing her frustration because he wasn't coming around, and nothing was really and truly happening that made him up his game. And I shared what I'm about to share with you now, and it has had a very beautiful impact on the relationship between her and her team member. So one of the things that we're talking about is building engagement, helping people to feel more motivated with the work that they're doing, and to start feeling connected to the work that they're doing, and start feeling as if the work they're doing is something that is rewarding in and of itself for them, intrinsically rewarding, right? Not rewarding because there's a carrot or because there's a stick, because there's not always carrots and sticks to be handed out. And what matters is that if you want to go the distance with someone, you've got to help them, you've got to support them, or you've got to support yourself to discover the intrinsic value of the work that you're doing. So the elements that I explored with my client is something that is an acronym. Where's my speech today? It's an acronym called RAMP, and I've tinkered with it, so I'm calling it RAMPS. And this is based mostly on the work by a guy by the name of Daniel Pink, and I really, really encourage you to check him out online because he's got some very, very cool tools and resources out there that you can incorporate either into supporting your career or to supporting your team members. So what does RAMP stand for? The first part is R for relatedness. And so relatedness is really talking about all of RAMP is talking about helping people to discover their needs. And as a manager, you discovering your people's needs and helping them to align their work so that the needs that they have, the needs that are dominant for them at that moment in time, are the needs that are being met predominantly. And if you're struggling in your own career, RAMP also really helps you because RAMP is going to help you to reconfigure what you're doing so that you can support the needs that you've got. So every single part of the RAMPs is about meeting critical needs that the person is having at the time. Now, it's very important to register that what we need and what we need more dominantly in one time of our life might not be the same as another time of our life. When things change in our lives, then how we need to configure this is different. And so it's not a static thing. It's an ongoing thing. It's situational. And this is what is so beautiful about the whole thing. If you're doing this for yourself in your own career, it's an opportunity to remain in dialogue with yourself in a way that allows you to take the invisible forces in your mind out from the shadows into a place where you can actually work with it. And if you're working with a team member, you can help them to think through what is holding them back, to become clearer about what it is, and helping them to discover solutions for it. What is always interesting for me is that we can know that something isn't feeling right for us, but we don't necessarily know what it is until someone helps us through conversation to figure it out. So this is an awesome tool to help people to figure out what might be troubling them, what might be holding them back from really, really thriving in their careers. So let's go back to RAMP. The R stands for relatedness. So this is a need that we all have, but we all have it in varying degrees, in varying contexts in our lives. And it is important for us to understand that in the context of our jobs, we have got a need to belong, to connect, to feel included, to feel like we fundamentally belong, to feel like our ideas are valued in that environment, to feel as though we matter in that environment. Something as simple, this doesn't have to be complicated. Whenever I've engaged with teams around this particular piece of work, it's been simple things. He greets me, she asks me how I am, she knows something about my family, about my background. This is all those things that help people to feel like they belong. Obviously, you might have to go and look at the structural stuff in the organization. You might have to look at very, very simple, very basic things, but I remember in my own career at some point in time, there was a situation where certain people had access to a microwave and other people didn't. And this had a relatedness implication. So you can go and look at the structural issues in your organization, but sometimes that is outside of your purvey. This is sometimes something that you don't have in your control. What can you do as a manager? What can you do as a leader in your context that can help people feel that sense of inclusion, that can help people feel that sense of belonging, that idea that they matter? And then for your own sake, in your career, do you feel like you belong? And if you don't feel like you belong, what are the challenges that keep you from feeling like you belong? Is it just a function of not sharing your thoughts and not experiencing connectedness with other people? Or are you just in a fundamentally wrong place, wrong team, wrong industry? This is a conversation that you must have with yourself. And as much as I say that you must have a conversation with yourself, I don't necessarily mean that you must take action willy-nilly very quickly without thinking it through. There is an opportunity to gradually start understanding what it is that you need to engage with to help you address these things. I see there's a comment limiting beliefs too. But I can't remember what you might be commenting on in terms of that. I see it's a bit of a lag on my phone. So maybe you can just refresh my memory about what the limiting beliefs are about. I mean, limiting beliefs just challenge us in our lives generally. It's all about what we can't do rather than what we can do. So the next element is an element that I think a lot of people are struggling with in the workplace at the moment. And we need to be really creative with trying to understand how we can shift this for people. And sometimes it can't be done at a macro level in the job. Sometimes you have to look for the micro opportunities. But the A in RAMP stands for autonomy, that ability to do things, that ability to make decisions, that ability to exercise, the however small a modicum of decision making that you can, of offering ideas, of being creative, of touching things and leaving your fingerprints on things, and knowing that when it goes into the world out there, you had some sort of meaningful role in it and that you had a design role in it. I was once very privileged to work for someone who, when we contributed ideas to him, he would insist that everyone has to work with the idea. And his language was that by the end of the day, he doesn't want to remember, he doesn't want to know any longer whose idea it was. He wants everyone's fingerprints to be on the idea. And so that is really what autonomy is about. It's about doing things that you do because it gives you a good feeling. And so it might not be mainstream in your job, but how can you carve out a little bit of autonomy into your job so that you can experience that pleasure of making decisions, of having responsibility, of having accountability in a way that is meaningful for you? So you said blockages, but I still don't know. I think I just need a few more words around those limiting beliefs. I've got a bee in the room with me now. I hope nothing interesting happens while I'm here. It'd be quite interesting. So if you've got team members who are nagging you for some sort of autonomy, for some sort of authority, you've got to start listening for it. They're not going to say to you, I want autonomy, I want authority. But they'll be coming to you with ideas. They'll be coming to you with ways in which they think things can be done. And there are always opportunities to see how you can accommodate them. And sometimes, if you can't accommodate them in the pedestrian part of the job, because I know in many places, jobs are reduced to processes and procedures, and the system pretty much drives how the job gets done. But what are the things that are peripheral that will meet that person's interests and give them that sense of autonomy? And by the same token, that might be true for you as a contributor in the team as well. What will give you a sense of autonomy in your job? The next thing in RAMP is mastery. M for mastery. And this is that feeling of significance, that feeling of doing something that will leave a mark over time, that sense of legacy, that sense of I've accomplished something and I've done it well and I've seen something through. And you know what? Even when I'm no longer here, some sort of history in this place is going to be a testimony to my existence in this environment. So mastery is all about really allowing ourselves to perform at a higher and higher level, to work more intricately, to work more, to work in a way that makes us feel like we've accomplished something that matters, and excellence is born out of it. And excellence, of course, is different for everyone. And so what is important is not to just look at the word mastery in a very general and broad sense. In the conversation that you're either having with yourself or that you're having with your team member, ask people what would mastery be like for them? What would significance feel like for them? What is the kind of legacy that they'd like to leave over time in the environment that they are in? This bee is like right here by me. And we don't kill bees here, so I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed. So anyways, the final part of the second last part of the ramp is the P, which is about purpose. Each and every single one of us comes to work for a reason. Too few managers in the world out there are sitting down and speaking to people about why it is that they're coming to work. You know, we can talk about the organization's purpose until we are blue in our face, but if the organization's purpose is not something that is inspiring to that person, then we've got to start figuring out what is inspiring to that person. Sure enough, the person is going to say perhaps something along the lines of, I come to work because I need to earn a paycheck, I need to put a roof over my family's head, I need to put food over the table. Then you've got to start really, really plugging into that purpose and what the consequences are of being able to fulfill and to live out that purpose for that person, and to help that person to ramp up the meaning for themselves around that. Too few people are, you know, really seeing the work that they're doing as purposeful. We work in a time and in a space where, you know, work is being done in silos and people are not seeing the end product of their work. I remember vividly the day that I thought my time in corporate is coming to an end. There are two particular incidents, and the one incident was after I had gone for a massage, and I was busy reassembling myself, but I was looking in a mirror and I could see the masseuse's expression on her face. She was still talking to me as I was getting dressed, and she had this look on her face, this look of complete and utter satisfaction, joy. She was so pleased that, you know, I had walked in pain, and I was now feeling and expressing to her relief and the gratitude that I was experiencing for what she had done for me. And I looked at her face in the mirror and I kept thinking, I want that. That thing that she's got on her face, I want that for myself. Because in the job that I was in, yes, I was in a very, very nice role. I was able to actually touch people's lives in a way that was fairly significant. And I was having fun at work, but I was never ever seeing an end product. I was so disconnected from the end product. So, you know, if you can help people to understand their why, to understand what the end product is for them, I can't begin to tell you what a big difference you make in people's lives. And if it's for yourself, become really, really diligent in sitting with yourself and exploring the why with which you go to work. Some of us are very lucky, and the why with which we go to work intersects beautifully with the why of the organization. But some of us don't have that good fortune that our why and the organization's why live well together. They might be just so completely disconnected and disjointed. And I know for a fact that there are many people who work in roles where, you know, they are so far removed from strategy, and they're so far removed from the big conversations that the why is pretty much diluted by the time it reaches them. So please, if you can, for yourself, for your team members, evangelize the big why, because the big why is one of the biggest boosts of energy for people in the workplace. And it is brain stuff that is happening. It's not stuff that people's doing from the conscious mind. This is coming from the subconscious mind. You will just see, who is speaking to me? Just try. Brain stuff that is happening. Some stuff that people's doing. Zainab. Limiting beliefs, meaning some people have blockages at work that stops them from excelling. They might be feel inadequate, or maybe they're just doing a job, but they are not inspired. They're passionate about a different purpose. Yeah, absolutely. And this conversation, this RAMPS conversation, can really help them to discover what can be inspiring for the jobs that they're doing. I want to say to you that, you know, very often we think that because people are doing certain kinds of work, I'm going to go into the medical world now. So let's say the surgeon, for instance, because the surgeon is qualified and all these kinds of things, and they drive a nice car, live a good life. I'm making these assumptions. But that they might be more inspired with their work, might be more connected, and because of the consequences of the work that they do, that they have got a lot of engagement and rewarding feelings about their work. The truth is, though, that what the research is showing is that more often than not, the specialists are incredibly burnt out. The specialists are the ones who feel disconnected, disassociated. More often than not, they are using substances to just boost them. And not all substances, I mean, are illegal or narcotic, but they're using things to keep them going because they just don't have that inner energy going. They don't have that intrinsic plug-in that is keeping them going. And yet, then there are the nursing staff, who one would think is more burdened. But what the research seems to show is that because they're connecting at a very human level with the patients, they are able to stay the distance. They have much more energy with which to greet the work that they're doing, and they are able to really and truly find the rewarding element of their jobs. So it's really, really important that we understand how any job you can find what is of value for that person. Or you can help the person to discover something for themselves away from how they earn a living that can allow them to feel engaged in their lives. So the last element is the S, which is for security. So that's where I mix a bit with Dan Pink's model. The S stands for security, and this is a very important thing, especially for the manager that I mentioned to you earlier on. She had come into a team, there had been conversations about restructures, and this person had been told on a number of occasions that his job might be at risk. So it is just really, really, really important to understand that when security is being threatened, this is one of our most basic needs. When we don't know if we're going to have a job, this is a huge stressor and a huge trigger for many people, and they can lose the engagement almost universally. So in organizations where, retrenchments are happening on an ongoing basis, this is so important to work with these needs, because maybe you can't promise a person security because retrenchments are part of the makeup of the working world at the moment. But what are the conversations you can start having with people that can help them to discover a sense of security, a sense of longevity, a sense of continuity in terms of this most basic need? Security is one of those things that if you mess and tinker around with it, you can have a body come to work, but you are not going to get much productivity. And when you've got a host of people who are in the scenario with you, what they're doing with each other and to each other can be incredibly destructive because they're feeding off of each other's fears. And if this is happening for you, if you are finding yourself in a space where this security element is being compromised, my biggest suggestion to you is don't get caught up in the conversations of what is probably the most frightening thing for your psyche to handle. Start thinking about ways where you can build continuity, where you can have power, authority, and autonomy in your life. And if you've got team members, then you've got to steer them towards the autonomy. You've got to steer them towards what is doable for them to create security. Okay. So it is important to remember that in this space, the ramps, all those elements, all those needs, they show up differently at different times. And so this is not a static conversation. This is an ongoing conversation. And in the scenario between my client and her team member, she made the assumption that taking work away from him was what was needed. And the reason why she made this assumption was because she projected what she thought was her needs. She went and she stood in his shoes in her mind, but here's the problem. We can't stand in other people's shoes, because when we stand in other people's shoes and we're looking at the world, we cannot look at the world through their eyes. We look at the world through our eyes, through our beliefs, our assumptions, our needs, our ramp needs, our beliefs, our blockages, all our stuff. And now we're starting to implement solutions for people. And the solutions are solutions that not only don't help them, it sets them back. And what she ended up doing, which is what is just the most simple thing on earth to do, is she ended up asking him, what do you need right now? And you know what his answer was? His answer was, I need work that challenges me more and that makes me feel like I can claim a win. Things have been going wrong in my life and I need a win. I need a win, and I need to know that, so he needed two things. He needed the significance, and he needed to feel like he was belonging, because obviously he was feeling alienated by the rest of the team. People were speaking about him, people were treating him like he was an underperformer, and every time they took work away from him, he felt that sense of not feeling included. His security stuff started to feel compromised, and what he really wanted was significance. So while she was operating from this idea of, I don't want to be troubled, I want freedom, I want to be in control, I want to know that this work isn't going to fall through because of a team member, and she was taking work away from him, that was her projection onto him, thinking that he might want less on his plate as well. What he really wanted was more significance, and she ended up giving him the tasks that felt more appealing to him, that played more into his need for significance. She did offer him a bit of support, and support was by, having his back and allowing access to her and this kind of thing. And what was so amazing is that within literally days, his performance shifted. So what is important here is to recognize that each and every single person understands what they need, but they need to be given the opportunity to think through this. So this is a conversation that you can have with yourself, and you can think through this. What is happening for you at the moment? Or you can have this as a conversation with your team members, and you can ask them, what do they need? What do they want? What will help them to flourish? And obviously, it's not about drowning them with stuff. It's about incrementally giving them the space to rise up to the work that is required of them. And what is so beautiful about the story that I share with my client and her team member is that there is some amazing, amazing partnering that is happening with them. And they can't explain in words. My client can't explain in words why this is happening, but she's just really, really loving working with him. And the reason why she's loving working with him is because these ramp needs are being attended to, there is something happening at a chemical level between them. There's a chemical partnership happening between them. So there's a number of things that's happening. So on the one hand, because she is supporting him and because she's allowing him to do something that is allowing him to rise into one of his highest needs, there is a chemical release happening inside of each and every single one of them, and this is called oxytocin. So oxytocin is that chemical in our brains that make us feel like we belong, that make us feel like we are part of something, we have our tribe. So between them, there is this oxytocin boost that is happening. What is also happening is, following very, very shortly on this oxytocin boost, is this idea that he's accomplishing things. And because he's accomplishing things, there's a motivation injection that's happening. And with each motivation spike, his self-esteem goes up, his confidence goes up, and his willingness to take on more goes up. And so what is essentially happening is that he's getting these dopamine boosts. And dopamine helps us to elevate our motivation. Dopamine is a short-term boost, and so we need to be creating dopamine opportunities on the regular. But what is happening between them, because they're progressing, because they are, as a result of these bursts of motivation, they are doing things, and they're doing really, really things that is important to them, not maybe the company globally, but to them it's important. They are experiencing this feeling of progress. There isn't that complete stop-start pattern that that was typical of the relationship before. And what is happening now is that there's this other part that is helping the partnership to flourish, and this is serotonin. So serotonin is that feeling of satisfaction, that feeling of joy, that feeling of, I can go the distance on this. I can really and truly settle into this, and I can make a difference doing this. And when you are feeling that oxytocin, that dopamine, and that serotonin in your work environment, you really start energizing your brain. You start walking away from the things that drag you into burnout, the things that drag you into feeling as if it just is too much and you don't care. I really just want to share, sorry, let me just close this thing here. I really just want to share that every single job that is in the world out there exists because it has to. Every job exists, even in inefficient environments. The job exists because it has to. No job is meaningless. Every single job, grand or menial, they all exist for a reason. What is important is that we connect ourselves to the reason and to the purpose of the job, and we find our autonomy, we find our significance in that job. We allow ourselves to establish security for ourselves. I think it is important that we recognize that we as individuals are meaning-making machines. The job in and of itself, the activities of the job, the stresses of the job, these are all neutral realities in our lives. It's how we're making meaning of these realities that creates the experience that we have. And I think through conversation, either with ourselves or through conversation with our team members, we can really up the ante and create opportunities for meaning making that allows us to thrive. Now, the scenario that I'm sharing with you with my client is my client works in a call center environment. The job a team member does is not the kind of job where he's going off and doing fantastical things. He's doing things within the constraints, within the rings that exists in the organization. My client herself has very, very little authority to change things in the organization. She's part of a big system. So they're playing with what they've got. And in your life, in your career, in your team, you're going to have to find ways to play with what you've got in order to heighten, to increase the engagement that you've got with the team. Now, every scenario is different and every person is different. And what is important here is that concept of dialogue. Dialogue, dialogue, dialogue at all times. So one of the things that is also true is that sometimes you can't help the person meet that need in their job. Maybe you can't meet that need in your job for yourself. So then you have to become creative. And what are the ways in which those needs can be met in your life? Where can you carve 5, 10, 15 minutes into your day, into your week, into your month, where you can attend to things that meet your ramp's needs? I believe that it is possible for every single human being to do things that gives them satisfaction. And if we do things that give us satisfaction, even to the slightest degree, we end up creating more resilience, more resourcefulness inside of ourselves. I'm finding just so many opportunities, especially in this time that we're living now with the internet and with the way in which connectedness is playing, where people are doing things as a side hustle or as a hobby, and then because they keep applying themselves at it, they start to create a brand for themselves around it, and then they start creating real opportunities around it. I know of people who are doing amazing things just by gardening. And I mean, for me, that is always fascinating. Gardening has become such a beautiful career. And, you know, growing up, if you told me, are you going to be a gardener? I'd be like, are you mad? So the question is, you know, are we thinking broadly enough about how we can make the things that give us joy, that meet our needs, how we can make it present in our lives? And then can we just keep sticking with it? And who knows what opportunities might arise for us over time by doing it. But in the meantime, in your day-to-day job, it is critical that you make space for the things that meet your needs. Because if you don't, what ends up happening is you go to work, but you leave your heart, you leave your mind, you leave the essential parts of yourselves out of the equation. And each and every single one of us is here to contribute. There is no person who is created who does not need to contribute in some way or the other. That is such a critical part of our makeup. So, you know, who knows, just by having this conversation with someone, how you might be contributing to them. So that's my story. If there are any questions, please, please, please let me have them. Zana, thank you for your comments. I really agree with you. Purpose and why is really, really critical. And I think we rely too much on the organization to create that purpose for us. Each and every single one of us have our own responsibility about creating purpose, about, you know, checking in with ourselves what our purpose is. In the meantime, I want to share with you that I am hosting a program from the 6th to the 9th of December. It's for an hour each evening, I think from 6:30 to 7:30. It's going to be a beautifully comprehensive program about how to create bliss in your life, in your career. We're going to talk about blockages and limiting beliefs. And we're going to talk about what kinds of different blockages and limiting beliefs show up for people. We're going to talk about the ways in which responsibility and accountability and things that I've mentioned in the RAMP system help us to create energy for ourselves in our careers, and that help us to create joy and bliss in our lives, in our careers. So if you're interested, I'll add a link to the post. I know I've posted it in the group previously. Please come and join. And if there's anyone else that you know that could value from it, benefit from it, please, please, please share the link. I'm really looking to speak to as many people as possible and share the stuff with them. The program that I'm sharing with you from the 6th to the 9th of December, it's not like willy-nilly superficial stuff. It's like really, really concrete. And in and of itself, it is just, I guarantee you, it is life-changing. When you get this kind of stuff on board, you can reshape the way in which you approach the world, and you will reshape the way in which you look at yourself and look at your environment, and make meaning for yourself. So there's no more questions, there's no more comments. Thank you very, very much for spending time with me. I really enjoyed it. And I hope that I will hear you experiment with, what will feel like relatedness for you, what will give you your sense of relatedness, and how are you able to generate autonomy in your career. I love the fact that so many people are able to work from home now, because suddenly autonomy is a much bigger opportunity in the way in which they set themselves up for performing their responsibilities, regardless of the kinds of jobs that they're doing. And then, of course, how are you creating mastery? How are you generating mastery for yourself in your career, in your life, in your side hustle, whatever it might be? And are you clear on purpose for yourself? Do you know why you get up in the morning? Why you make, the sacrifices that you make every single day to show up for your job, for your work? Do you know what it is that is making you do that? And yes, at the superficial level, there might be things that's very obvious. But if you go deeper, are they meeting your values? Are they meeting your dreams, your passions, your complete interests, the things that you're curious about? And ultimately, how are you going about creating security in your life? That's like a whole conversation in and of itself. But as managers, we have incredible, I'm saying we as if I still manage people, I don't. But managers have got incredible, incredible influence in the way in which people think about creating security and sustainability in their livelihoods, in their lives, in their home lives. And all we need to do sometimes is actually have a conversation with someone so they can start thinking about what the options are that are available for them. So thank you very, very much. I really appreciate you spending this time with me. And before I go, I just want to remind you that there's a chemical cocktail that is being brewed in your mind, in your brain, not in your mind. You don't want to be brewing the adrenaline and the cortisol. What you want to be brewing is the oxytocin. You want to be brewing the dopamine and the serotonin. These are the things that are going to help you feel really energized. And so, find ways to get those things going in your brain so that you can feel energized. By the way, the one thing I just want to say before I go, I know I've been going on forever, but the one thing that I just want to say before I go is, very often we think that because we're feeling tired, we need rest. We have to have a conversation with ourselves. We quite literally have to ask ourselves, at a mental level, brain, what is it you need? And sometimes your brain might say to you, what I actually need is novelty and curiosity. I want to be interested in something again. I want to be excited about something again. Your body might be saying to you, it's tired, but it might actually say to you, what I want is movement. I don't want to be sitting in front of Netflix and just passing out with brain. I want to be out there. I want to be seeing the blue sky. I want to be smelling fresh air. Your body might be saying that to you. Emotionally, there are needs that need to be met, and you can check in with your emotional state. What does it need? And if there is a need, it might be I want some care. I want some excitement. I want some, now there's more hojas. I want some, I don't know, your heart will know. And spiritually, what do you need? You can really check in with yourself. I actually have a meditation if you're interested. If you are interested, please send me a comment. I have a meditation that is very useful for people to check in with themselves about what they need in order to experience rest that isn't about passing out and numbing out. It is a rest that is about restoration and bringing them to a place of recreating the energy levels. So if you are interested in that meditation, please send me a message or comment somewhere and I will send it to you. So thank you. I am going to go now. I have been prattling on for quite a while. Thank you. I hope that you get benefit out of this, and I am going to add the link to Passage to Bliss in this in the comments. And if you want to join, you are welcome to, and you are welcome to bring along anyone that might benefit from it. Have an awesome week. I will see you next week. Bye for now. That doesn't want to end. I think I'm just going to have to end like this.